A very good morning wherever you're watching us from. This is Kirk in the morning. My name is Vincent Kerosi, the 23rd of November 2022. Quite a chilly morning in the city this morning, but all the same we thank God that we are here to begin the day with you. We have a lot lined up for you. Of course, today we have a conversation, a big one for that matter, on the GMO debate in the country. What is being done that is right, what is being done that is wrong. And we have an expert voice in the studio this morning, and of course those that are also stakeholders in the sector, and we're going to dissect into the issue deeply later on in the show. But first things first, let's have a look at what's happening in the major roads leading to the city this morning. All right, let's have a look at the major roads into the CBD this morning. Of course, beginning with Langata Road this morning, a little bit of a snarl up probably because of the rains and the drizzles that have happened this morning. So there's a little bit of slowness on the road this morning, connecting with Raila Odinga Road, that's Mbagathwe. Just at the roundabout around T Mall, a little bit of traffic, but moving on, it keeps on moving quite smoothly, except at the roundabouts, especially the Nyayo Stadium as well, going all the way to Uhuru Highway, around Haile Selassie roundabout, things not so good. But if we had a look at what is happening on Mombasa Road this morning, Mombasa Road, a little bit of traffic as well. Because, as I told you, it's been a chilly morning, a drizzling morning here in the city, and so the roads are a little bit slow because of the slipperiness on this road. So there's a bit of traffic on these roads. If we look at Ngong Road this morning, it's always a chaotic road every day, and today is no different. Connecting with Valley Road this morning, a little bit of traffic, but all the same, it's moving into the city. But you have to plan yourself well to be in your destination on time. Have a look at what is happening on other roads. Probably if I can get Jogo Road this morning. Yes. Jogo Road, a little bit of traffic as well into the city. Connection with Lanthis Road this morning, a little bit of traffic. So generally, I would say that there is a bit of traffic into the city this morning, basically because of the drizzleness that we've had in the early hours of this morning. So plan yourself well, get to your destination in time, and take care on the road, because when it rains, the roads are slippery. So if you don't drive safe, then you might involve yourself in an unnecessary accident. But all said and done, that's basically what is happening on the roads this morning. Well, after the roads, time to look at what is making the headlines of the top dailies in the nation this morning. We have the Standard and the Daily Nation with us. Let's begin with the Standard. New school fees burden for parents. That is a story that has been written by the Standard on the top page of the Standard, and this is what they are saying. Kenyans who are already burdened by the high cost of living will be dealt a major blow as the government moves to end a school fees holiday that saw some caregivers get a reprieve of up to 8,500 shillings a year. Basic Education PS Julius Joan says schools will revert to the old fees charged before COVID-19 outbreak. Schools category, if we look at what has been, the school fees so far in the year 2021 for national and extra county schools, a parent was required to pay a total of 45,000 shillings a year. That's in the year of 2021. But now into the year of 2023, parents will be required to pay 53,554 shillings, a variance of 554. That's an increase of around 8,000 or so, and this is not going to be easy on the parents. County and sub-county schools, boarding schools that paid 35,000 in the past year, now they're going to pay 40,535, an increase of 5,535 shillings. Special needs schools boarding that paid 10,790 shillings a year, now they're going to pay 12,790 shillings, an increase of 2,000. Now, free day secondary schools, these a parent paid 11,122 shillings in the year 2021. It's going to remain at least that amount in the year 2023 as far as the new proposals are concerned. So it means then that the parents is going to dig deeper into their pockets if at all they're going to ensure that their children are in school. Away from that, a story on a page, of course, the top page of the Standard as well, is the maize imports, the story to do with the maize imports, of course. And the story here is that MPs train their guns on courier. Barely 70 days in office, President Ruto's government is facing headwinds over its new policies. One such is a decision to allow importation of 10,000 tons of GMO and one the plan stopped, but are threatening to impeach trade CS Moses Kuria. Of course, this is going to make part of a conversation of this morning, the issue to do with GMO and of course maize importation. Is it the right thing to do? Remember that you can weigh in on this conversation through our social media, Kirk TV Kenya on Facebook, KirkTV_Kenya on Twitter, and of course our SMS number 0211 002244. We'll be able to look at your feedbacks even as we continue with the conversation. Now, another story covered on page 22 of the Standard is the MCA's plan to impeach Governor Mwangaza. And this is, of course, 68 of 69 Meru County MCAs drafted an impeachment motion against Governor Kawira Mwangaza, citing nepotism. Of course, this is not, it has been a roller coaster for Governor Kawira Mwangaza of Meru, because since she set foot in office, the MCAs have always been on her back. And they're going to succeed this time round. We will wait and see, because they signed that petition, the motion, and it's going to be discussed next week when the governor herself will be in the house, that is the county assembly of Meru. And then after that, of course, it will proceed to other avenues and quarters, ultimately into the Senate of the Parliament, the upper house of Parliament, that is the Senate. We wait and see what happens. Now, having a look at stories on the Nation this morning, Ruto Raila face new headache in Mount Kenya. Of course, that is a story, President William Ruto and Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Raila Odinga are facing a tough balance act in their efforts to maintain a grip on the vote-rich Mount Kenya, and amid threats from the key allies in the area. The new headache apparently fueled by the recent parliamentary elections for members of the EALA. So it seems that the appointments into the EALA are causing jitters in both camps. That story covered on page 4 and page 5 of the Nation. Now, the big story, of course, the maize story. Korea faces a tsunami. That is what the Daily Nation writes this morning. A revelation that Kenya will import 11 tons of genetically modified maize seed add to the controversy of GMO that has been seen MPs train their guns on Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria, with Pokot South MP David Kosing threatening to collect signatures to impeach him. In addition to opposing importation of GMAs, MPs want the government to hold its plan to bring in grain until local farmers' produce has been bought. Meanwhile, the cost of maize flours continues to soar. There's a story covered in page 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation, a story that you're going to look into in extensiveness this morning. If I may flip over to the last page of the Nation, teachers owed 1 billion shillings in acting allowances. Of course, this is a story on, the Kenya Union of Teachers accusing the TS of failing to confirm tutors who work in acting position for a long time. Of course, that's a story covered and written in the Nation, the last page of the Daily Nation. Now, into sports. A little bit of FIFA World Cup and what is happening in Qatar. Qatar is joining celebrating Messi conquest. I remember yesterday, Messi's Argentina lost to Minos, I might call them, Saudi Arabia, where they were beaten 2-1 by Saudi Arabia. And today in Saudi Arabia, of course, is a national holiday to celebrate that emphatic and historical win against arguably the world's best player's team, that is Messi, and Argentina losing against Saudi Arabia. So the leader of Saudi Arabia, that's the king, has now, today gazetted today as a national holiday to celebrate the win that the national team had against Argentina. Of course, that is a story written in the pages of sports, that page 40 to page 43 of the Nation this morning. Of course, the matches continue today. We have Morocco playing Croatia. That's a match of Group F. Match will begin at 1 p.m. local time, and Germany will play Japan at 4 p.m. Spain will counter Costa Rica at 7 p.m. and the late kickoff is between Belgium and Canada at Hamad bin Ali Stadium at 10 p.m. Of course, that is a little bit of what is written in the dailies this morning. You want to read deeply and extensively, then go grab your favorite of the dailies this morning, and you'll be able to read and understand some of the stories covered by my fellow journalists in those pages. Basically, that is what is in the papers this morning. Well, that is it. After the papers, we want to have a look at the top news, at least at this hour, what is making the headlines at this hour. And I want to begin with a story on GMO. That's members of parliament from the maize-producing counties have threatened to impeach the cabinet secretary for trade and investment, Moses Kuria. Speaking yesterday, the MPs accused, of course, Kuria for recklessness and utter disrespect to the local farmers for planning to import maize while the farmers are harvesting, saying there is enough maize in the country.
They don't know where to sell them, and the government or the ministry has already imported 10 million bags, and they will start selling those bags of maize to the
There is a deliberate move to continue killing the maize farming in this country, as was seen in the previous regime, where even the sugar sector and other farming sectors were killed, with necessary consultation with including stakeholders, but not limited to members of parliament. In conclusion, the committees of agriculture, trade and industry and cooperatives in parliament should immediately summon the CS of Trade, Honorable Moses Kuria, and CS Agriculture, Honorable Mithika Lenturi, on the matter. Furthermore, the ministry should cease the issuance of gazette notice to allow importation of 10 million duty-free bags or any other amount of maize into the country. We also demand the government to open National Cereals and Produce Board and strategic grain reserves and mop up the entire maize harvest of this year before allowing importation of any amount of maize.
Tuna mahindi ya kutosha katika mashamba, katika stores za wakulima wengi zaidi, na sheria inasema ya kwamba kwanza serikali ichukue yale mahindi yote, inunue yale mahindi yote, iweke katika strategic grain reserve haitoshi ndio watafute kununua mahindi nyingine. Hiyo mahindi kama ni ya kununuliwa ili kuongezewa, lazima ikuwe mahindi ambayo ni mahindi ya sawasawa kutoka Uganda, kutoka Tanzania, si lazima ikuwe GMO.
Well, at the same time as the debate on GMO continues, both houses of parliament yesterday held a session to discuss the same. Even as the heat on the issue mounted, the MPs urged the government not to rush into the decision and allow public participation before lifting the ban on GMO importation, but most importantly, utilize the locally produced maize, especially this harvesting season.
And I want to recommend as I close that a select committee of the Agriculture Committee and the Committee of Health be put in place to be able to sit together with their counterparts in the Senate and undertake thorough public participation to ask experts and stakeholders and the people of Kenya whether indeed they want to resolve or vote to GMO. In the meantime, the lifting of that ban should be ceased, and all the instruments, including the report of the 10-year ban task force, should be brought to this House through the Committee of Delegated Legislation.
We all know that this country, through its cabinet, had placed a ban on the importation and dealing in all GMOs, all the way from 2012. Madam Speaker, it is surprising indeed that a purported cabinet meeting is said to have lifted the ban on GMOs. Yet we know that that so-called cabinet meeting couldn't have been a cabinet meeting. If you read Article 152, Sub-Article 1, the cabinet is defined as the president, the deputy president, and cabinet secretaries, including the AG. And if you go to 152, Sub-Article 2, the president is supposed to nominate cabinet secretaries and appoint them upon approval by this House. So the Constitution does not contemplate the president sitting with some members of an old cabinet and calling it a cabinet meeting. The Constitution does not envisage a situation where the president can sit with people whom he has not nominated nor appointed as cabinet secretaries.
Well, let's take a break away from that for a moment, because we'll come back and discuss that deeply. And look at another story where President William Ruto yesterday arrived in Seoul, South Korea for a working trip of 3 days. Ruto was received by President Yoon Suk Yeol. Later, they held bilateral talks centering on diplomacy, business opportunities, as well as investment.
How are you? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Alfie, how are you? Very good. Hello, how are you? Very good. Hello, how are you? Yes. Okay. Hello, how are you, my dear?
Miss Kirk, medical attaché. Margaret Matura, that is Miss Kim, finance assistant. This is Lynette.
Very good.
This is, she helps keep us safe and tidy. This is Miss Matura, who is our driver.
Very good.
This is Jude, he is...
Now back into the country, Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza faces a tough ask in keeping grip to her position. This is after 67 of the 69 members of the County Assembly initiated a motion to have her impeached, citing nepotism and abuse of office.
Honorable Speaker, I beg with the support of honorable members of the County Assembly of Meru, whose names and signatures are indicated in Annex 1 Year 2, to move a motion for the impeachment of Honorable Kawira Mwangaza, the Governor of Meru County, for 1, gross violation of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, gross violation of national and county laws, 3, gross abuse of office, and 4, gross misconduct. The specific grounds of the motion are organized thematically as outlined in the index below and to elaborated in the ensuing pages of this motion. The evidence in support of the motion is set out in the annexes to the motion. The affidavit presented herewith verifies the accuracy and reliability of the annexes to the motion. Preamble 5. The first charge against the governor is nepotism, illegal appointments, unlawful dismissals, and usurpation of the constitutional and statutory functions of county organs. Under this charge, we have the appointment of the husband to county offices, roadside appointment of county workers at Moi, roadside appointment of county workers at Nkobo, roadside appointment of county workers at Kianjai, contempt of court, and illegal dismissals. The second charge is incitement, bullying, vilification, and misleading campaigns against other leaders. Under this one, we have humiliation of the minority leader, vilification of the minority chief whip and other leaders, vilification of the senator of Meru County, vilification of the cabinet secretary for agriculture, vilification of the MP for Tikanya East constituency, vilification of the Catholic Church and the clergy. The third charge is forceful entry into the assembly precincts and mobilization of unlawful riots against the members of the county assembly. The fourth charge is violation of public finance management laws, and the fifth charge is misconduct relating to the nomination of CECs. Preamble. Whereas Article 10 of the Constitution, Section 3 and 16 of the Leadership and Integrity Act 2012, and Sections 9, 10, and 12 of the Public Officer Ethics Act of 2003 establish, among others, the rule of law, democracy, human dignity, courtesy, respect, social justice, inclusiveness, equality, human rights, probity, professionalism, non-discrimination, protection of the marginalized, good governance, transparency, and accountability as part of the national values and principles of governance. 2. Articles 10, 73, and 75 of the Constitution require state officers at all times, whether in public or private life, to behave in a manner that, among other things, 1. Brings honor to the nation and dignity to the office that a state officer holds. 1. Ensures decisions are not influenced by nepotism, favorism, or other improper motives. 3. Demonstrates discipline and commitment in service to the people. And 4. Avoids demeaning the office that an officer holds. Articles 10, 232, 235, and 236 of the Constitution and Sections 59, 59A, 60, 62, 63, 64, and 65 of the County Governments Act 2012 provide for the values and principles of public service and establish an elaborate framework for the establishment of county public offices and the recruitment, employment, and dismissal of county public officers. Article 181 of the Constitution, Section 33 of the County Governments Act and Standing Order number 65 of the Standing Orders of the Assembly provide for the impeachment of county governors for, among other things, 1. Gross violation of the Constitution. 2. Gross violation of any other law. 3. Abuse of office. And 4. Gross misconduct. 5. The governor has engaged in multiple discreditable acts that severally and collectively amount to gross violation of the Constitution. 2. Gross violation of various national and county laws. 3. Abuse of office. And 4. Gross misconduct. The discreditable acts have exposed the office of the governor, the assembly, and its leadership and the people of Meru County to national shame, embarrassment, ridicule, and disrepute.
All right, we want to take a short break. When we come back, we'll hopefully come back with our guest in studio now to debunk the myths the do's and don'ts, they know the truths and untruths as far as the GMO debate is concerned in the country. But even as we take this break, I want to leave you with what happened in Parliament yesterday pertaining the same conversation, and then when we come back, we'll get hold of the experts to help us understand who was saying the truth and who was not saying it, and how it has evolved, of course, for the last 10 or so years since this conversation first began in the country in the year 2012. Don't go away.
They don't know where to sell them, and the government or the ministry has already imported 10 million bags, and they will start selling those bags of maize to the to the bakers. So the question that we are bringing here, before even the cassette men went out, if it's true that the ship has already docked in Mombasa, and we were yet to verify, with 200,000 bags, with 37 more vessels expected in the country, the question that we are asking the ministry, why import maize at such a time as this when the farmers have sufficient and we have enough maize already in the country? Two, the question that we're still asking the ministry is the issue of importing the GMO maize. This is a question that most of us are still asking, the safety of GMO. We have our neighboring countries like Uganda, Tanzania, they're still producing organic maize, but not GMO. Why could we not go buy maize from the neighboring if we have a real shortage? But at this time, we have never, in the history of this country, we have never imported maize during harvest.
And I will always assist him by not being a chester in the royal cry. I will always say we are naked as a government. I will never mislead the government by saying we are not naked when we are naked, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, 10 years ago, the sugarcane industry was doing very well in this country until the discussion began that we don't have enough sugar in this country. We have to import some sugar from some countries. That is what made the sugarcane industry begin to limp. As we speak now, is no more. I want to ask most of our friends who are not coming from maize growing zones that today, yesterday it was sugarcane, today it's maize, tomorrow it could be milk, the other day it could be tea, Madam Speaker. Even when we reach a time when we have no maize in this country, we don't have to import GMO. We can.
And I want to recommend as I close that a select committee of the Agriculture Committee and the Committee of Health be put in place to be able to sit together with their counterparts in the Senate and undertake thorough public participation to ask experts and stakeholders and the people of Kenya whether indeed they want to resolve or vote to GMO. In the meantime, the lifting of that ban should be ceased, and all the instruments, including the report of the 10-year ban task force, should be brought to this House through the Committee of Delegated Legislation.
We all know that this country, through its cabinet, had placed a ban on the importation and dealing in all GMOs, all the way from 2012. Madam Speaker, it is surprising indeed that a purported cabinet meeting is said to have lifted the ban on GMOs. Yet we know that that so-called cabinet meeting couldn't have been a cabinet meeting. If you read Article 152, Sub-Article 1, the cabinet is defined as the president, the deputy president, and cabinet secretaries, including the AG. And if you go to 152, Sub-Article 2, the president is supposed to nominate cabinet secretaries and appoint them upon approval by this House. So the Constitution does not contemplate the president sitting with some members of an old cabinet and calling it a cabinet meeting. The Constitution does not envisage a situation where the president can sit with people whom he has not nominated nor appointed as cabinet secretaries. And therefore, even indeed...
Masters I did on intellectual property rights on plant genetic resources. And I can tell you one of the main things I dealt with was GMOs. And I can tell you that even in the United States, where Bill Gates is coming from, this is a very contentious issue. And if it is so good, then he needs to go and sell the GMOs in his own country. We cannot be used as guinea pigs for things that we don't know yet, and the impact as this country. We are already dealing with a high impact of cases of cancer. We don't know if these GMOs are going to cause cancer, or if actually they are the ones contributing to cancer, because somehow people still find a way of bringing them in. So, Madam Speaker, let us not use our...
PCEA Githunguri Presbytery invites you for the 2022 Rites of Passage sessions starting from the 5th to 16th of December at Githiga Children's Center. Charges for boys are 8,300 Kenya shillings for the sessions. An alternative rites of passage for girls will start from 12th to 16th December. The charges are 5,300 Kenya shillings. Some of the topics to be covered will be Bible study and Christian growth, communication and relationships, manhood, womanhood and adulthood, self-awareness and peer influence, adolescence and sexuality, drugs and substance abuse, among other impactful topics. Registration is ongoing at all PCEA parishes within Githunguri and at the Githunguri Presbytery office. For more information, get in touch with Githunguri Presbytery office through their number 0721 844 064 0721 844 064. You can also get in touch with Reverend Samuel Gakuya, Mr. George Kagodho, and Reverend Lydia Kahiga. We welcome your feedback on our programming. For questions or comments, kindly get in touch with us via email info@kirktv.org, SMS 011120044, or call us on 0794 588 054. Christmas already here at Kirk TV. Are you a business looking to advertise your brand and products to potential customers? Are you looking to improve your sales as we end the year? Starting this October till January 31st, 2023, we are offering you, our customer, various discounts up to 50% off our advertising rates. Imagine paying half the price to reach customers countrywide. Usiwachwe nyuma hii krisi. Call our sales teams now on 0738 278 506 or 0739 971 607. Contact us on email bnkogie@kirktv.org or munyoroku@kirktv.org for more information. Hurry and book now. Pamoja tuvuke mwaka. It's the Kirk TV and your advert bonanza.
great people on earth today are the people who pray. Not those who talk about prayer or those who explain about prayer, but those who take time and pray.
God answers prayers. Why? Because He hears. His ear is not deaf, so He hears our prayers.
Men and women who go before God, we should be men and women of godly standards.
Sure.
So we abide,
so
that we keep tapping from the source.
But as we pray, it is important to tell God that your will be done in this prayer that I'm praying, or about this prayer item that I'm praying about. Not as I will, yes, this is my will, but let your will be done.
In these changing times and seasons of uncertainty, who do you look up to?
God keeps His part. Calm rain, calm sunshine. God is still committed.
From one generation to another, and it's not like shifting shadows that He will change, but
join Reverend Elizabeth Kimani and Henry Kyra every Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. live on Kirk TV for Call Unto Me.
2021, He's still the same God and He has not changed.
Christmas already here at Kirk TV, the season of cheer and goodies. Are you a church organization and would like to air your end of year and New Year services? Are you thinking of reaching a wider audience and showcasing your Christmas cantatas and concerts? Have you thought about showcasing your Sunday school services to the entire country? Then, Kirk TV is offering you the end year advert bonanza. We will cover and broadcast all the above events at up to 50% off our normal rates starting this October till January 2023. Usiwachwe nyuma hii krisi. Call our sales team now on 0738 278 506 or 0739 971 607. Send an email bnkogie@kirktv.org or munyoroku@kirktv.org for more information. Hurry and book now. Pamoja tuvuke mwaka. It's the Kirk TV End Year New Year Advert Bonanza.
All right, welcome back. This is Kirk in the Morning, of course. My name is Vincent Kirosi, and right about now, I'm joined in studio with the guest that I told you earlier. What a morning that we are going to have here this morning with an issue that is a hot cake, an issue that is, you know, bringing up and emanating a very huge and hot debate, the issue on GMO. The truths and the untruths. It's time to, you know, delve into that and get to understand a few things about it. And you have an opportunity to also engage with us, to weigh in on this conversation this morning by sending us your views on our social media pages, Kirk TV Kenya on Facebook, Kirk TV Kenya on Twitter. Of course, our SMS number is 0311 220044. We'll be able to look at your feedback even as we continue with this conversation. In studio, I'm joined with two gentlemen. One at my near right here is Dr. Sylvester Anami, a senior research fellow at the Institute of Biotechnology Research. the JQAT, that is the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. And of course, at my far right is not a new face in these studios. One Rev Elias, I got that right, Elias, not Elias.
Both can do.
Okay. Elias Agola is the national coordinator of the GPRC. Of course, he's a clergy, and we have to get the voice of the clergy in this matter. Now, to begin with, I think I should engage with you, Daktari, to help us understand. First, what's GMO? Let's begin from there.
Thank you very much for inviting me for this show. And I'm so pleased and happy that I have an opportunity to speak to church community. All right. On the issues of GMO and the science that is related to it. I'm so pleased to explain what is GMO in a number of ways. And one is that our parents, a long time ago, used to control the maize stalk borer by collecting soil from their surrounding, and they sprinkled this on the maize plants, and the maize stalk borer could actually die. What they did not know was that that soil that they were taking had a bacteria with the capacity to kill the insect pests. But nowadays, the organic farmers have actually isolated that bacteria from the soil and then put it in media and developed a biopesticide. Okay. So they spray the infected maize and they are able to control the insect pest. And this is actually the maize stem borer. Okay. Now scientists have taken the same bacteria and isolated the DNA in it and transferred that DNA into maize. And then the maize becomes resistant to the pest. So if you look at the three instances, you realize that our parents use the same bacteria, organic farmers are using the same bacteria, and therefore scientists are using the same bacteria to control the insect pest. So in a sense, what is GMO? GMO is a plant, let's say a maize, that has been modified by introducing an exogenous gene. Exogenous means from a bacteria or any other organism into the plant for specific traits that is, required by either farmers or scientists.
And if I may get you, is genetically modifying all about controlling insect pest, as you said?
Not really, but the truth of the matter is that it is specific. So if it is for control of insect pest, then it has to be for the control of insect pest. But genetic modification can also be in the control of plant diseases. We have the maize lethal necrosis disease that's ravaging farmers in Baringo. That is also okay. We have cassava mosaic virus diseases. And in fact, in this country, we have a genetically modified cassava, which has been developed by the University of Nairobi to control the plant diseases. Genetic modification can be in plants. It can also be in the medical fields. Like, for example, the COVID-19 vaccine was developed through recombinant DNA technology, which is actually genetically modification. Insulin, which we use here, mostly for patients who are actually suffering from diabetes, it is actually through a genetic modification. They take a gene from a bacteria and then be able to put in the bacteria to produce the insulin in mass. Or they can also genetically engineer plants, and plants then become bioreactors to produce insulin en mass. So scientists then isolate the protein, purify it, and then they can use it for treatment or management of diabetes.
Okay, I'll come back to get more information on that because it's becoming interesting even more. But before then, I want to bring you in, Revelers, and help us understand you out there. What information do you have about GMO, or genetically modified organisms out there?
Well, thank you very much. I'm sure you brought us in, the two of us, to raise one on the other side of the coin and another one on the other side of the coin.
Yes, yes.
He is talked about how it is modified and how it works and how it is beneficial, which is very important. And I'm here also to learn as he talks. I've started learning a lot, and I believe other people have also started learning. The side that I would want to bring is the side of the concerns of the populate.
Yes.
As he has just ended his statement, his opening remarks, is that GMO is not wholesomely bad as people think it is. Again, GMO is not wholesomely good as people may think it is so good. Because there's nothing that is 100% good, and anything that comes into market or into space has its negative and its positive. I think during this talk I will be raising some concerns which may be answered by a doctor,
that is very
or which may also act as a civic awareness to the people out there that much as it is that good, it may also be this other bad. And then we also need to hear what are the experts, how are they prepared to handle the issues and concerns that come from the populate.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. As I asked you earlier, you hear what people say now that you deal with people, you deal with masses as a clergy. Do you feel that there is enough information for the people out there to understand and make decisions pertaining GM?
My straight answer would be no, because if you hear people talk in a mixed way, supporting or not supporting, and when you, for example, read some of the posts that come out in the social media or the talks in the churches and in other, public places, you will realize that people are not properly informed. And the information they have may be a misinformation or, but not facts, not facts-based, because nobody has taken time to educate the Kenyan populate on what GMO is. At some point it was banned, at this other time the ban is lifted, but nobody has engaged the Kenyan populate on what I would call public participation, which is enshrined in our constitution. If you read Article 11, you will find that, and 13, you will find that, yes, there is need for public participation on anything that is being introduced at whatever level of government, whether it is at the county level or whether it is at the national level. And so you asked about information. Do we have information out there? Certainly no.
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 This conversation, Daktari, began in the country not just yesterday. It's been 10 or 12 years ago when this conversation began. And in 2012, there was, I don't know if it's a ban or suspension on anything genetically modified, especially maize, into the country. Now, 10 years later, things seem to have changed drastically for that matter, especially in the last few weeks. And now it seems that the GM, products are now, legal into the country. How did this happen? That's the question that we're asking. But I know that's more political than science. But from where you are, what has changed for the last 10 years until now we have this conversation that is heating up, and the government saying that we are importing genetically modified maize into the country. What has changed?
Yes, so much has changed. So I have to bring in the perspective as to why there was a ban. So a French scientist published a paper that demonstrated that mice which were fed on a GMO maize developed tumors. And just like me and any other person, if you read this kind of information, you will panic. You will be worried. And so the minister then, Beth Muko, banned the importation and open cultivation of GMO in the country. So fast forward now to now. From that time, remember that paper that was published had problems. Because if you look at that particular paper, first of all, the mice that were used in that particular experiments were predisposed to cancer. In other words, 98% of those mice die from cancer. And something that became so weak in the paper was that the controls, which were not fed on GMO, also died at the same rate as those that were fed on GMO. So the scientific community asked, what killed the controls? And so research now, leading international laboratories, universities, engaged in research to reproduce those results. And up to date, the results could not be reproduced, meaning that the paper was actually meant to be sensational, to be create some alarmist statement about or against GMO. So now in this country, what has happened is that research has been ongoing because they never banned the research on GMO.
GMO, yes.
So research has been ongoing for the last 10 years, and there has been no health risks related to GMO. Our own organization, Carol, has in fact been developing PT, corn, and cotton, and they have actually been in terms of experiment, confined field trials. And in the confined field trials, it's highly regulated. There is, in fact, what we call environmental release of the GMOs, and whether they have effect on biodiversity, and whether the indigenous seeds of farmers will be lost if you plant this GMO in close proximity with the non-GMOs. And so, in fact, we have up to 8 agencies in this country regulating anything to do with GMO. And on top of that is the National Biosafety Authority, which was established by an Act of Parliament, and its main role is actually to be able to deal with safety issues of the technology, development of the technology and the deployment of the technology. And so to say, GMO products are heavily regulated. And if that is the case, it means, therefore, that the safety of this GMO is verified. Otherwise, if it's not verified, there's no way they can allow the importation. Now, my good friend Pastor here has talked about public participation. Of course, there are many ways in which you can get involved in public participation. I remember the National Biosafety Authority has organized several meetings, especially at the Kenya Institute of Monetary Studies, to be able to discuss about the safety and the open cultivation and importation of GMOs. And on the basis of the research that I've been talking about, and even the confined field trials, and the presence of regulatory agencies, researchers in this country can now be in a position to develop genetically modified organisms easily and cheaply without too much funds that are required. And then in addition to the public participation I'm talking about, and also expert reports from the universities, from National Biosafety Authority, from CAFEs, and of course international organization, the cabinet, in its own wisdom, and the government decided to ban, to lift the ban on importation and open cultivation of GMO. And the main reason why that happened is because over 10 years, there is no evidence that GMO or that PT corn causes cancer or it has any health risks.
Okay. I want to bring you in. Just coming, Rev, and before I want to play a certain clip, but before I do that, are you sufficiently answered? Because I see you.
Well, that is the truth according to Daktari, and well, I have a different opinion about what he's talking about.
On public participation.
On public participation. Okay. And the risks that are already on the ground about GMO. Okay. So maybe I will come back to that.
Okay. Yeah. Allow me to play a clip here by the Cabinet Secretary of Trade and Investment, Moses Kuria, because I want us to look at, we are talking about the information out there and the way the government's handling this.
Yeah.
We want to listen to what the Cabinet Secretary had to say the other day on GMO when he was proposing on the importation of around 10,000 tons of GMO maize into the country. Can we have that bite of the CS Honorable Moses Kuria?
You can see that even the rains that are going on are not to our satisfaction. We don't have good news for our, what you call MAM, March, April, May rains. As a government of Kenya, we cannot hide our heads in the sand anymore. We have taken 2 deliberate steps. One is that we have so many things that can kill us in this country. Being in this country, you are a candidate for death. And because there's so many things competing for death, there's nothing wrong with adding GMO to that list. That is why we have deliberately decided to allow GMOs into this country. And the second thing is, until we are satisfied that we have enough maize in this country, our staple food, tomorrow I'm signing a gazette notice to allow for importation of up to 10 million bags of maize, duty-free, for the next 6 months until we achieve food security. Because that is our cardinal responsibility as government. I know this may offend some people, both from a GMO and from importation, but I will do this, and we will do this as government. Even if it's not, we lose some votes here and there, but at least we will see the kingdom of heaven. Thank you very much, and I wish you very fruitful deliberation.
All right, that is the Cabinet Secretary for Trade and Investment, Moses Kuria. That particular bite has brought a really issue, and you know, the Parliament is some section of the Parliament is planning even to start an impeachment process against the CS. But I want to begin with you, Rev, before I come to Dr. here.
Yes.
And we are talking about misinformation, disinformation, or lack of information at all out there on this issue. And then the Cabinet Secretary comes out and says, there's so many, being in Kenya, you're a candidate of death, and there's so many things that are competing to, you know, to kill, and there's no reason that we should not introduce GMO. This has already depicted GMO as a killer, from what he said. What is your take on that?
Yes, I would want to advise the Cabinet Secretary that he needs to understand that we are not in the campaign dispensation. He's been given a docket to serve Kenyans and not to use uncalculated words to describe how Kenyans need to die. Just saying that GMO is adding to the list of the risk killers is admission enough that GMO can be a killer. And I think that is not taking the Kenyan populate seriously, and it's not, discharging his duty as responsible as we would expect that to be. Mm-hmm. He's not supposed to get into the debate of what the scientists are supposed to tell us, as Daktari here is now educating the general populate. And it's not good to take for granted or as just, statements that come from their mouths, not from their heads. I would want to see a serious cabinet secretary talking to Kenyans and appealing to Kenyans that what we are doing is for the good of this country, and not mentioning that we are bringing another agent of death into the country. I would say that it's good to say that public participation has been, conducted at different levels or with different people. But generally, whoever is talking about public participation knows that the general populate of Kenyans have not been reached, either individually or through their representation. I am here representing a church. I am at the National Council of Churches of Kenya. We've never been invited for such discussions. 10 years down the line is when the ban was put. 10 years after the 10 years down the line is now when the ban is being lifted. What is it that was done during the 10 years, a whole decade, to educate, to inform the general populate on what GMO is? Nothing was done. Then abruptly, it is being lifted. The question that we have is, what happens now to the farmers in Kenya who would want to have what we would call organic farming? If GMO is going to be planted across, there is something that happens, and scientists know, it's called cross-pollination. It means you are here in the middle planting organic seeds or organic farming, and the others just across or around you are doing what? Are doing GMO. What happens? There will always be contamination. So this farming that you are doing here will not target the international market as organic, pure organic what? Farming. That is the truth of the matter. Number two, when we look at this GMO or any farming around this time, there are always pesticides. There are also other farm inputs and others. They are very expensive for the farmer, and you know that. And this one is going to kill even, the natural farming where we use the manure and other things. And some of these GMOs, Dr. knows that some of them have to, as the scientists do their research, they also do their research on the pesticides and others. Yeah, and they match the seed and the other farm inputs, like fertilizers and what have you. Yeah. So these fertilizers and these farm inputs, more often than not, they even contaminate the environment, and the people around there suffer. If you go to places where we have this flower planting, or flower farming and other farmings that are introduced, what happens? The people around there have some kind of, health effects, and nobody is willing to compensate them. In other countries across the world where GMO is very high, what happens? Those people are compensated. Here, nobody compensates you, and those that sell you these seeds, those that sell you these pesticides, those that sell you all this, they load everything on you, including any effect on your health, and nobody talks about this. What we would want to see as a church, what we would want to see as the general population, is somebody coming to tell us what the information you have is a misinformation. Okay. This is the information. Nobody has it. It is in those universities. It is in those boardrooms. It is in Parliament, and even the parliamentarians that have just joined, some of them know very little about this thing. Okay. So why did they take a little time to do what? To educate us,
the public.
The public. Yeah. Why didn't they seek for our misinformation so that they can inform? Yeah. Why didn't they wait for a little moment? When somebody says that many things are killing people in Kenya, and this is not the only killer, That I don't think is responsible.
It's according to you, it's not responsible.
It's not.
According to you, Daktari, when you as a scientist, you're seated here and you're listening to the cabinet secretary come out with such sentiments, when the issue here is hotting up, when people don't understand, when people have, a divided opinion about the same, what do you make of that? Even as we take a short break, then we come back, just make us understand. What do you take of that, what the CS said, as a scientist?
Yeah, what we know as scientists is that we have a lot of misinformation on GMOs, disinformation and malinformation about the GMO. And the reason is, 10 years down the line, scientists were not coming out to explain to the public what is GMO and what are the benefits of GMO. It was maybe probably the civil society that were actually against GMO that could come up with cartoons and pictures that scare people about biotechnology. And so now here I would like to ask the politicians that now we, the scientists, are on the forefront to be able to explain and, to the public and give them the right information backed with the science and evidence about the GMO and the advantages that come along with it. And in fact, if the church can also invite us in their meetings to discuss these issues, we are more than ready to come in. And scientists have even grouped themselves into, like, for example, there's an organization called the Biotechnology, Biochemistry Professional Society of Kenya, which has brought together all the scientists doing research and teachings on biotechnology and molecular biology to be able to advance all these new technologies that we have here. So we are available. We can actually give the correct information to the public. And in fact, as we wind up and go for break, I still want to insist that there is a lot of misinformation and we are available, and that's why I'm here to be able to restore confidence to our farmers and to Kenyans.
All right, that is great. Now, I'm pressed to take a break, but when we come back, I want us to listen to another leader who has had his say on the same issue, and this is the leader of Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya, Raila Odinga, who in 2012 was for the GMO, was pro-GMO for that matter, but a few days ago, he came out and made a statement, especially on the involvement of the local institutions, a research institution, on how that issue is developed. And I would like really to have, the two gentlemen in the studio have their say on the same. But before then, let's take a short break. Then we'll be right back. Remember that you can weigh in on this conversation by sending in your feedback on SMS number 0341 220044, and of course our social media, Kirk TV Kenya, and we'll be able to look at that even as we have, ask the scientist in studio, Dr. Sylvester, and of course Rev Gola, to also help us understand what this issue is all about. We are right back in a short moment.
PCEA Enomatesiani Booth Boys High School is an ideal school for boys located in a quiet and serene environment, ideal for learning in Matasia, Kajiado County. The school works towards producing qualified students who become competent professionals in the society.
We offer a wide variety of subjects in our school. Our school is well equipped. We have a state-of-the-art library, a spacious boarding section, a modern kitchen, also Olympic-sized swimming pool where our students go and have their swimming lessons.
The school focuses its effort not only in classroom learning, but we also provide learners with equal opportunities, that is to hone their abilities and talents. We have games like football, chess, volleyball, among others. The climate here is also favorable for all students.
PCEA Enomatesiani Booth Boys High School is open for January 2023 intake in junior secondary forms 1, 2 and 3.
Our school is founded on Christian value. We appeal for you to register our school next year, which we are offering our junior secondary school, and we know we'll be able to mentor your boys through our Christian setup.
We are going to mold our boys in Christian values, and we are committed to do so at this time when the boy child must be taken care of.
For more information, get in touch via 0796 560000, 0796 560000. Email us pcea@gmail.com.
PCEA Kahawa West invites you to the Rite of Passage December 2022 experience from 7th December to 17th December 2022. We have a tailored program to address identity crisis in adolescence, a powerful road for shaping young lives to God. We also equip adolescents for transition to adulthood. This is a lifetime investment. Charges for the boys are 11,500 shillings from 7th December at 4 p.m. to graduation day on 17th December 11 a.m. For girls, you'll be required to pay an amount of 7,500 for 6 days between 12th December to 17th December 11 a.m. Registration fee is 500 bob. Visit us at our offices PCEA Kahawa West daily from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or call 0713 468 983 or 0722 956 849 for more information. Rite of Passage December 2022 experience found sitting, listening and asking. Luke chapter 2 verse 46.
Okay, welcome back. This is Kirk in the morning, of course. Today is a day that we want to talk about GMO debate. It's been quite something the last few weeks, and we have an opportunity in studio to speak to an expert. When we were, during the break, Revagala said he's also a scientist, a social scientist for that matter. And so I have two scientists in the house, and that's awesome. But before we went to a break, I saw you jot a few notes down, and I believe that is in part of what Rev was raising. And the issue more is about organic farming information. What do you have to, tell him on what he raised earlier?
Yes, I would like to respond to him and also to organic farmers. The truth of the matter is that all technologies that are available in terms of agricultural farming practices need to be put on the table so that they can boost food security in this country and also address agricultural challenges. And so the organic farmers, like for example, the technology of push and pull, it has been very successful in making sure that they can control the maize stem borers and also a parasite called striker, especially in Busia and also in Kisii regions. And so we welcome all these farming practices. But what we are saying as scientists is that now we have a new tool which is coming to complement the existing technologies. It's not denying the organic farmers from going on with their farming practices. And so if this new technology, its role specifically for this case is to control this insect pest efficiently and permanently, why can't we just bring it on board so they can complement the agroecological farming practices so that we can move forward as a country? The other issue that you talked about was the issue of cross-pollination from a GMO to a non-GMO. Of course, I come from Western Kenya, and I would like to give an example. I have one farmer in my neighborhood who has been growing the indigenous maize, and he's actually against growing the hybrids. But the neighborhood always grow hybrid seeds. But this farmer has never complained that he failed to be able to harvest his indigenous seeds just in the presence of hybrid seeds in the surrounding. So the chances that the indigenous seed will be changed drastically are very low. But then the other thing on that is we have to address what is the sexual compatibility between the GMO maize and the other varieties that are within proximity, and what is the distance, because pollen also has a limit as to how far it can move. And if it is the wild types which are related to the GMO maize, what is the fitness or the dominancy of the hybrid that comes from it? And so if you study that, you realize therefore that up to date we have not had, not in Kenya, because Kenya has not been having GMO, but in other countries we have not had a situation where a GMO cross-pollinated with maybe a wild type which became very, started growing mercilessly or uncontrollably. And I think it's important for the farmers to know that that cross-pollination, yes, it's possible. Yes, it has been demonstrated, but the chances are very low, and the fitness of the hybrid that comes is also very low.
Yes, I'm looking at, even as you were speaking and trying to look back at what we were talking about, I think Kenyans are questioning themselves here that some other developed countries have actually have a total ban on GMO. Talk of, like 19 of the 27 member countries of the European Union. That includes Australia, Germany, France, Austria, Greece, Hungary, the Netherlands, Latvia, Lithuania, just to mention about a few. Here in Africa, we have Madagascar, Algeria, to mention about a few. Why Kenya? That's the question people are asking. Are we better than, France, than Germany, and other countries that have a total ban on GMO? Why Kenya? Especially, are we scientifically sufficient?
So two things. So recent events in the country. One is that we had what we call maize shortages in this country. And then two, in about 29 out of 47 counties, we had deadly drought. And we saw people really emaciated, children wasted, and animals dying because of lack of animal feed. So in that case, in that scenario, there was a need, in my opinion, to bring in additional maize to make sure that to cap the shortage that is existing. Of course, right now, farmers in Trans Nzoia are harvesting maize, and they're even worried if the GMO comes in, where will they sell? But what I would like to tell them is that even with their own harvest, we still have got a shortage. And therefore, it's just important that the additional number of people that are in this country since we got independence to today, they need to be fed. And therefore, if we can bring in a GMO maize to complement what the farmers are harvesting, I think there's no problem. And then the other aspect about these other countries. You know, like this technology failed in Zimbabwe. And the reason why it failed is because they did not have the capacity to shepherd the technology. Every new technology, even if it's a vehicle, you need to be taught how to drive that car. Especially the fact that they did not have the capacity in terms of human capacity, knowledge, skills. They did not have regulatory agencies to regulate the GMO. But Kenya, as a country, one, the challenges we have had as a country, and two, we have the capacity. So many scientists in this country are trained in the areas of biotechnology, molecular biology, and the generation of GMO. We have each and every university in this country at least has courses or institutes in biotechnology and or industrial biotechnology. We have up to 8 regulatory agencies, KEFIS, KP, National Biosafety Authority. So we have the capacity to shepherd. Calero is actually on the forefront to provide seeds for planting the next season. And therefore that means we have the capacity to shepherd the technology to prosperity in addressing our agricultural challenges.
May I say something?
Come in, Rev.
I think that is becoming so appealing and it's good for the ears. But the question would be, why would 19 countries out of the 27 in Europe ban GMO with their technology, with their universities, world class? Yeah. Why would they ban the production of GMO? That question should be properly answered. Yeah. Why would some states states in the United States also ban? Why would some, strong technologies in Africa also ban? Why would we have some, countries or states in Australia, in Canada, ban this? Yeah. That should be public information to our populate in Kenya. Mm-hmm. He talked about a farmer in Western having organic farming and has never complained. You are in the media and you understand that the public is fed on what the editors choose to do what? To air. Mm-hmm. That is what the public is fed on. Mm-hmm. So if this farmer has no avenue of complaining, then how will you publish that story? Dr. has talked about scientists who are taught all over in our universities. What have they published and disseminated to the Kenyans for us to know that we don't need to measure on this misinformation, malinformation, disinformation? This is the information. What have they done to ensure that we have this information about the GMOs? Number 3, why is it that just all of a sudden GMO is lifted and many tons are now coming into the country? When was it procured? Mm-hmm. Does it mean that some people have something that is more than the GMO? It is more business at this particular time. Mm-hmm. Because if it was something that is going to feed Kenyans, then it was supposed to be introduced to Kenyans first. Then Kenyans, have their input on how this is going to help them at this particular time. Yes, I know that drought is an issue, but I also know that flooding is also an issue. The same time, at the same time when some parts of the country are experiencing drought Others are experiencing floods.
Flooding, yeah.
What has the government done strategically to do the dams that are needed, the dikes that are needed, so that we don't have people being displaced by drought and killed by drought, and others are displaced and killed by flood? Yeah, I think it is more of not having a quick fix. Like, let's introduce GMO, even when we Kenyans do not know what it is. GMO is not bad, and people should know that. I'm saying, for me, GMO is not bad because the information I have, which I know many of us in Kenya also may be having, but not all Kenyans or not a good percentage of Kenyans, is that GMO is not 100% bad. But the way it is being introduced without involving the stakeholders, the main people who own the sovereignty of this country, and who is the backbone support of this country.
Who is going to actually be the consumer?
And who is going to be the consumers? Yeah. And who is going to be affected? I've just talked about the issue of, somebody affecting your health without compensation. You go to the hospital as a result of the GMO processes, and nobody compensates you. So, and in those countries where this GMO is being practiced, we all know that if you are affected health-wise because of the GMO, products and what have you, then you are compensated. And who is compensating you? The people that are introducing it. Yeah. Those that sell you the seeds, those that sell you the pesticides and other farm inputs. Yeah. So here in Kenya, I think we are saying what we need, we do not need to hear that we have a lot of regulatory bodies who have not even come in public and tell us that this is what we do, and before the introduction of this was our advice to the government. There is nothing that is published that we can read about the regulatory institutions. Dr. has said there are 8. There is nothing we have read from our scientists in the country about GMO. And if there is, it should be published so that everybody knows.
Yes, I think, Doctor, you have a right of reply to what he said, because it's all on you right now, because you raised the issue on regulation. You say Kenya is, the capacity to regulate is good enough in Kenya. But again, we know impunity and corruption in Kenya is an issue. And this is why Kenyans are questioning themselves, because as Reb rightly put it, before even the gazettement for the importation happened, actually, there was a ship that docked in the seas in Mombasa with the product. So the impunity, the corruption, and these are the questions that Kenyans are lingering with.
So I'd like just to respond to him and maybe correct something. That even in those countries that have allowed GMO, nobody has been sick because of eating GMO. What we know is that those who have been using pesticides, those pesticides are the ones which seem to have some health problems.
And that's what I said. Yeah.
And now the GMO that we have here, that means the PT corn. Once you plant it, you will not use any pesticide to control the maize stem borer. So in that case, therefore, your safety from pesticide is also verified. And therefore, the other things that I would like to respond to is, why are these other countries not talking about GMO or have banned GMO? But I will also ask the same question, why are these other countries, also in Europe and America, accepting GMO? We are in different situations. Those countries, here we want GMO because we want to boost our food productivity. Those guys, in all those other countries, in fact, are food secure. And that's why they have even excess to bring to us as food aid. So in the event that really you do not need another additional tool to increase agricultural productivity, why would you want to allow that technology to continue? But in the medical field, those countries are doing all to do with genetic modification, GMO. Now, for example, insulin that I talked about here, I mean, it's being produced by these developed countries. Vaccines, all vaccines, in fact, even the malaria vaccines, is all through GMOs. Control of malaria, even in Western Kenya, it's about the gene tribes, where, you change the reproductive ability of the insect not to, spread the plasmodium that causes the malaria. So, in my opinion, the other thing that I would like to respond to is the publication. We, the scientists, we do the research and we do the publication in probably open journals. But the challenge will be that access to those information may be limited, and maybe the way in which we need to disseminate that information maybe is different. Probably we need to really move to the farm, to the fields, and be able to tell farmers that this is the information that we have about GMO. So probably that weakness, as we now are in this discourse, we'll be able to look at it and correct the way we disseminate information on GMO.
Yes, I know that time is really catching up with us because it's almost 10 a.m. But allow me to play that clip of Raila Odinga on GMO. Then after that, we'll be able now to, try to chart a way forward, what needs to be done then going forward, because this conversation is here with us and we need Kenyans to understand and we need to make that move and that step forward, what needs to be done. But before then, let's listen to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga on the same issue.
Our institutions and farmers need resources and political goodwill to come through for the nation. Under the prevailing erratic weather patterns, the wise and patriotic thing to do is to invest in the capacity of our own institutions to undertake the production of crops that can withstand climate change. The Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization, with no better scientific capacity than more advanced institutions that continue to cast doubt on GMOs, has unfortunately lauded the government's decision to flood the country with GMO maize. We do not believe that Kenya will solve its problems by taking money abroad or seeking food aid that comes with strings attached and with grim consequences for our farmers and general population. Allowing GMO in response to drought amounts to sabotaging our institutions and selling the country to the rich nations and established biotechnology corporations at the expense of our own. This move abandons our farmers, seeds, soils, and ecosystems to the benefit of foreigners and their companies. It's a betrayal of our country and our people. The older Kenya Kwisha regime will subject Kenyans to unproven and dangerous foods in an attempt to please international interests and do not care about our safety. We ask Kenyans to oppose this move and to totally reject any GMO foods should they ever enter the Kenyan market. Our constitution is clear on the sovereignty of the people on matters both small and large. On grave matters such as life-altering GMO foods and technology, the people's voice must be heard and respected. We are sure the people and their chosen leaders will overwhelmingly reject GMOs once their views are heard. End of statement.
All right, that is the Right Honorable Raila Odinga there, the leader of Azimio, having his say on this topic, the GMO topic. And he said a lot of things, but one issue that for me I want to pick out of that bite is the issue to do with, strengthening the local institutions to make sure that they're ready and they can also deliver on this issue. Are local institutions ready in terms of capacity to deliver than us expecting, because he said it's like we are selling our country to external multinational companies to give us products with strings attached. Locally, as a scientist, do you feel our institutions have enough capacity, strength enough to deliver?
Yes, in simple terms, because like, for example, the National Pie Safety Authority, the KEFIs, the KIPI, and many others were established by an act of parliament. That means a bill was introduced in parliament and parliamentarians discussed this bill and eventually passed it, and the president assented to it. That is the law. So that means, therefore, that they actually knew very well that what we are establishing has the capacity to be able to do the right job that they are meant to do. So in this case, on the issue of GMO, we have the National Biosafety Authority established under the law in 2009. And therefore, this National Biosafety Authority has the capacity to monitor and even evaluate the design, the development, and deployment, even importation, anything to do with genetic modification of plants. And so what I know is that even in the United States, the people trust and believe in their institution. I would like to ask Kenyans to trust and believe in those institutions, because even the appointment of the leadership of those institutions sometimes is also through parliament. And so they look at that person and the capability and the capacity and the experience to really be sure that this person has the capacity and the institution has the capacity. The people there are knowledgeable, have the experience to really drive the technology forward. In my opinion, we have the capacity. The regulatory capacity is in this country.
Do you agree with him?
Yes, I do. I do. Every agency that is put in place to serve the Kenyans in this great republic has the capacity. What we do not have is the political goodwill for these agencies to operate independent from the political interferences. Those who make political statements like we have just heard, they make statements based on their convenience and not based on the need to serve Kenyans. And I would comfortably say that the same people that are crying against GMO today were saying it should be introduced. When it was banned, that time it was not convenient for them. What did they say? It should be introduced. So whoever was behind it, if they know people who come behind the political bigwigs to introduce harmful things to Kenya, then they should tell us that they know. But they don't even need to tell us, because when they are talking against something at a particular time, we know they are the voice of somebody. Even now, we can also know they are the voice of somebody. But I would want to
speaking from both sides of the mouth.
Both sides of the mouth, and I would want to just take everything that he has said. Some things are okay, like saying let's strengthen our agencies, like where the Daktari is and our research, research institutions. Let's strengthen them. Let's give them also the opportunity to publish whatever they have discovered, and also disseminate. We have heard that they publish it in open journals, but we all know that if you want to hide anything for any African, just hide it in books, and nobody will read it. But if you come out and tell Kenyans that this is what we have found out, this is how helpful it is going to be. Of course, it has these side effects and this, but this is how we have learned to work with them.
But that again needs that what you said about the political goodwill, because they cannot do that if the government of the day is not in support.
It's true, it needs the political goodwill. But you see, when the goodwill we want is in support of some other people that come maybe to do away with our institutions, then that goodwill will never be there. One would ask, why would somebody come from America and go to Makueni?
Are you talking about Bill Gates?
No, I'm talking about somebody. If you know the name, then we confirm it. Why would Bill Gates, for example, one of the richest people in the world, come to Kenya and specifically go to some places in Makueni? Do you know that in the same Makueni, there is a bishop there called Bishop Leod Masika? He has kicked out handouts, food handouts in Ukambani. In his village today, even when there is hunger in Kenya, nobody goes there with what they call in Kikamba Molio. It is called Operation Molio Out, OMO. I've been there personally, and Bishop Masika has transformed that whole area. People should visit there. Even you as Kirk, you should also visit there and publish that story. Even Dr. should also go there and see what he does. And if that can be done in every village in Kenya, then the waters that drain to River Nyando, that drains to Lake Victoria, River Nzoia that drains to Lake Victoria, River Athi that drains to the Indian Ocean, when it gets to Kilifi, it has another name. What these people do is that they channel this water to some dams. And they know how they do it. In fact, the dams are not, wide surface dams. They are strips of dams, which also controls the water evaporation. And these people use that water throughout the year. So when we talk of food security, much as GMO is good, it is not the answer to our food security. Our answer to food security is dry minds that do not want to think. Yes.
Also, you talked about climate change.
Yes.
But I agree with the pastor that GMO, well, he says the GMO is not the solution, but I'm saying is part of the solution.
Yes, that I agree.
Food security. But now, coming to climate change issues, indeed, we had even the COP27 in Egypt. And it was really all countries in the world coming together to be able to mitigate the impact of climate change, and that is flooding, drought, salinity, and even insect pests. The population is increasing because of these changes. And therefore, imagine the amount of greenhouse gases that are emitted into the atmosphere through agricultural activities. It's a lot. And therefore, the only way is to be able to ensure that we sequester those gases back into the soil. And that's where the science of biotechnology and GMOs come in, because you minimize the tillage of the land. The moment you start tilling the land, you release the gases in the atmosphere and contributing to climate change. But from Africa, it's negligible.
It's negligible. My producer has given me really an extra time here, and I want us to conclude now because we are almost 10 minutes past the hour. But I want us to, even as we conclude, Dr. you tell us what is now the best way forward, and of course from where you sit as a clergy, what do you think is the best way forward as far as this issue on GMO is concerned? Let me begin with Rev there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. The best way forward, and as I said, my key point here is concerns that we have with the issues around GMO, not with GMO, but with the issues around GMO, and the need for public participation. No Kenyans would be willing to die because of food, and nobody should see another person die because of food. And anything that is going to help us, ensure that we have enough food is important. Some will be on the temporary, others will be long term. We need to look at the long term. And the long term may not be in the GMO. The long term may be in how we allow our institutions and agencies to operationalize with that political goodwill, regardless of who is in power. Because we have seen politicians, when they are on this other side, they talk this side. And when they are on this other side, they also talk other things. We would want to encourage our leaders, political leaders, and all leaders in Kenya to ensure that the common populate has enough information on anything that is being introduced to them. And therefore, the people with that information, please release them. For a church, example PCA Church and other churches and religious coordinating bodies, we have infrastructure everywhere in this country. Use us, give us that support that we need so that we talk to people on your behalf or we invite you to talk to people. We will mobilize for you. Thank you.
Okay, Daktari, even as we conclude shortly, what is your take on the best way forward?
So the best way forward is that from the scientific point of view and also from the evidence that exists, I would like to restore confidence in farmers that the GMO technology, the biotechnology that generates the GMO, is good for them to address their agricultural challenges, especially control of pests, diseases, increased productivity, animal quality of the animal feed, and many other challenges. And therefore, it's good that farmers embrace and therefore adopt this particular technology, because nobody's going to take this technology away. So let them trust in the science, let them trust in the evidence, let them trust in our regulatory agencies. And if they need to be strengthened, if there's any weakness, then we need to strengthen them so that they can ensure our safety. And also, as we continue discussing about GMO, now the world is moving away from GMO technology. We lost the Green Revolution, and therefore we are losing the benefits of GMO, but now the world is moving into gene editing technologies that is poised to revolutionize and make agriculture much more modern. So it's better that we move forward. But in addition, as we speak about GMOs, it's important that because of the effect of climate change, we actually promote the growing of resilient crops. And some of these crops are like, for example, millet, sorghum. We have breadfruits that are probably grown in Kenya, and we also have banana plantains called the enset. These are some of the crops that are, resilient to climate change, and that they can boost food security in this country.
All right, it's a vast topic that we might not be able to conclude in just one sitting. And we believe that even as the conversation continues, we'll be able to invite you, gentlemen, again here for such a talk. And a better one, I believe that we'll have gotten more information from your side as well, because you're all about public participation and information. And of course, from you, as far as the development pertaining the same continue, we'll be able to continue with this chat. And remember, it does not end here. It continues online and continues even going further, even into our subsequent programming and bulletins. We'll be able to continue to look at what the politicians say, what the experts say, what you say as a populace, and we'll be able to help each other to understand even deeper what the GMO debate's all about. Just looking at someone here asking, what is a conundrum? Of course, GMO conundrum, a conundrum is just something that is confusing because of so much information or lack of it. So that is why we call this topic GMO conundrum. Was it good enough? Yes. All right, thank you guys for being with us. In studio I've been with Dr. Sylvester Anami, a senior research fellow at the Institute of Biotechnology Research at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, and of course Reverend Elias Agola, a national coordinator at JPRC. Of course, again, you are in the NCCK. Yes, so he has comes here with a lot of hats on his head, but this morning he's also been a social scientist for that matter, and I believe that we'll be able to, drink a lot from his cup. I want to say thank you for being with us. I continue watching the rest of the programming here on CAP TV, and I want to say thank you, gentlemen, and I want to wish you a good day, even as we continue the conversation. Whenever we need you, kindly avail yourself so that we may have the viewer here. God bless you. See you. Enjoy the rest of the view. My name is Vincent Kerosi. Ciao.